Good afternoon and welcome to Find Your Sparkle with Jen, where you'll be informed, inspired, and influenced. I'm your host, Jennifer Stewart, owner of Jazz Potential and creator of Find Your Sparkle. And today I am extremely excited to have with me my new friend, Sabin Karma, who him and I met through the Inside Out Institute. And I'm super excited to have Sabin here for all kinds of reasons, but I'm going to read this because he's just an incredible young man, and he's one of four identical quadruplet boys, if you can imagine that. And if even like a 600 million chance of that happening. So, I mean, that in itself is amazing. But as you can imagine, because of that, he and his brothers got a lot of attention growing up, and that impacted a lot of their self-worth, their values, their ability to feel love, where that was coming from. And I mean, you can imagine the amount of attention, and it must have been really challenging to figure out, who am I? I mean, who are you, right? So that's kind of led to where you are in your life now, Sabin. And, I'm so happy that we got connected. And you have, one of the things that you aspire to is to impact 1 billion people positively through all of the great work that you're doing for yourself and for your listeners and your audience that is growing all of the time. So you're going to be sharing some of that, but one of the things that's super incredible for me is that you're 23 years old. So you deserve like a huge, I mean, that is pretty incredible that, at that early age that you have, such great things that are coming up. So without further ado, I want to just say a huge welcome to you, Sabin. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I don't really have too many words. That was one of the best introductions I've ever witnessed. So thank you for sharing your heart on that. And well, I always tell people when they're like, Sabin, you're so, wise. How do I think one of my friends put it best, Michelle Thomason from, shout out to her from Inside Out, said, Sabin, you figured out what it took most of us 20 years of stupid to figure out. And my response to that is always, I was lucky enough to suffer at a young age, and that suffering led to an awakening for me, and it really transformed me very early on and forced me to reflect. But then I would get to the point where I realized not everybody comes out of suffering stronger and more awakened and more conscious. And so that's actually leading me to the book I'm writing this year, which I've titled The Transformative Power of Suffering, because I'm really obsessed with that difference because of my own personal life and the ways I've been able to come out of it. But, some ways that, people aren't able to come out of suffering.
Well, that's really extremely true. And it'll be an extremely valuable book. No, there's no question about it, especially with this last, over a year now that people are experiencing. But when you think about growing up, and I want to take you back a little bit, just so the audience can get a better sense of you and what kind of things did you and your brothers kind of endure as, being these four kids that were identical, and all of the pressure, like what kind of pressure? Like give us an idea of this, young Sabin, this little kid that is thrown into this world that he had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, so, as an identical quadruplet, I still will never forget one kid. And this was kind of an example of what everybody thought of us in elementary school because we were very popular. He said, your guys' life is perfect. And that's because he was looking at it from the outside. We got celebrity-like attention for being identical quadruplets. And so everyone thought our life was perfect. But as glamorous as it looked on the outside, what does that do to a child when people can't even say his first name properly and they keep getting it wrong? Or I have to wear a certain color to school every single day just so people can tell me apart. So I'm Sabin Scarlet, I had to wear red. Lennon was lime, he had to wear green. And Nolan navy blue. And Mark was multicolored. So we had to wear colors. It seems harmless, but getting all this attention for a collective identity really makes you question your worth as an individual. And so for the longest time, I thought, I internalized, I'm not worthy as an individual. I only get attention when I'm around my brothers. I want attention as an individual, like the attention I get with my brothers. So out of that pain of, my real self not being valuable as an individual, I did some pretty, extreme things. The main culprit, I'll explain, for me was perfectionism. I thought if I appear perfect in the eyes of everybody else, whether it is the most disciplined person. I didn't eat junk food for 3 years. I was playing ice hockey 8 hours a day. It was ridiculous and insane,
Oh,
but it was
wow.
coming out of pain. It was coming out of
Right.
pain, or acting like I was happy all the time. Just, or, then it translated, external goals can't fill internal holes. I always say that. And so,
Very true.
hockey ends, and this the insecurity just shifts. Then it becomes who can date the most girls, who can get the best grades. It's the same underlying issue that I struggled with for the longest time, because I wanted to stand out and be unique, because I didn't feel unique as an individual. But for the longest time, I was looking for the external world to give me my uniqueness. And that was probably the main way I suffered, from being a quadruplet.
So when you think back, did you and your brothers talk about that kind of thing? Did you have, was there always a competitiveness between you all? Did you say like, oh my goodness, this is so hard? Did you have those conversations? I don't want to wear red today. I want to wear multicolored. Like, I'm tired of this. What
Right.
was the dynamics with you and your brothers growing up?
Yeah, so it was honestly unspoken. And I think that's a big problem, because I'm all about communication now, but we weren't as authentic. We didn't know how to communicate. And I, it was just like, we call it something interesting. A therapist actually coined this term a couple of years ago. It was called the quad conforming system. It was this
Mm,
subtle system of like ways we all had to compete and be in order to be approved of by our brothers. And so there was a lot of judgment involved in this. So it was, and none of this was communicated out loud. So it was all these
right.
unspoken rules. So we're all internalizing these really bad beliefs. We're not communicating them and not being vulnerable and getting them out. And that's just resulted in me bearing so many of my emotions and thoughts and stuff down inside of me. And it's only been a recent journey where I've had to go inside of myself to uncover and, release all of that.
So have you been able to positively influence your brothers on their own path as well?
Now that is a definitely a predicament I find myself in for the last 6 months since I joined Inside Out Institute, because for the longest time I was kind of the leader of them, and that was a way I wanted significance and perfectionism, but I would do it in the wrong way. I would do it by trying to tell them what to do and how this is the right path for them, and they would shut down to that. They would hate that. It's only in more recent times that I've learned that I can only change them to the extent I've changed myself. And so now I serve more as an inspiration to them, leading by example. They see my transformation. And then by staying in my own lane and doing my own thing and my own passion all out, regardless of their judgments, I got a lot of judgment when I joined Inside Out Institute at first from them. But now finally they're starting to come around and they want to be transformed in similar ways. So it's changed over the years for sure.
That's a good thing. Change is always a good thing. And
Yeah.
it's nice that, you don't know what you don't know. So when you figure it out, you can't unknow it. So it's
Yeah.
great to be again at your age, which I mean, 23, you have so much life ahead of you. And for you to be able to be that example and be that inspiration for your brothers, I can see them maybe reluctantly initially kind of thinking, do we want to join and come along, but not feeling any pressure from you, obviously is going to be a huge impact. And well, I mean, seeing the difference is incredible too. Can you think
Yeah.
back? What was the big catalyst, the big turning point for you where you said, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Like, I can't do this anymore, because you had a very successful YouTube channel with your brothers. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's kind of still there, but not as active, I think, right? Am I
Right.
right
Yeah.
with
No,
that?
you're exactly right. And there's two main suffering moments. One that started me on the path of personal growth, and I'll briefly touch on that, where I was dropped from two different fraternities my freshman year. Before that, I was doing what every other college kid was doing, but that suffering forced me into stillness, even though I was lonely in isolation. And I awakened, and I decided to transfer to the University of Notre Dame. I got into meditation, and I really came out of that stronger. But the second big suffering moment for me, where everything kind of changed with me being an inspiration to my brothers and the way I went about it, was COVID. Honestly, COVID, it's been such a blessing for me. So hard in the beginning. I remember coming back and I was dating a bunch of different girls at the time, and I had all these grades and I was traveling to cities and thought I was living the best glamorous external life to everyone else, but I was rotting on the inside. And COVID forced me in my house with the people closest to me, who also simultaneously are the people I have the most problems with, undealt with. And so we were
Right.
forced, and it was a lot of fights and blowups. And I still never forget, in this room we were filming a YouTube video and the tensions were rising between us. And my brother Lennon said, I'm not doing this anymore. He said, F this, I'm not doing the YouTube channel anymore. And I always describe it as, I felt like they were stomping on my heart as they were, going out of the room, like they were stepping on my heart, because it crushed me. And for the first time in my life, I could honestly say I was depressed. I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. And it was one of the hardest things I've really had to go through with I felt like an outcast in my own family, in my own house, and I had nobody. And it was so hard. But, it's in those moments that, again, I had silence, I had time to reflect, and I started to seek new knowledge. I said, there has to be a better way. That is when magically the CEO of Mind Valley's in an interview showed up on Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory. Then I get into Mind Valley, which is an incredible educational platform. I highly recommend it. That's where I meet Lori Beckman, shout out to her, who brings me into the Inside Out Institute, who leads. And if I didn't suffer in that way, because honestly, the YouTube channel was at the time partly, and again, there was this conscious, subconscious war. Consciously, I wanted to be authentic and about connection, but subconsciously, I was obsessed with views and likes because that was the perfectionism. And it was only when I joined the Inside Out Institute and I finally got energy healing and able to release emotional baggage that my subconscious and conscious finally aligned. Now I'm on both levels, I'm able to be authentic. So I plan on going back to my YouTube channel with no regard for how many views I get, and just really being able to communicate those messages in the same kind of way that I want to lead my brothers, just from the bottom of my heart, not because I want to be more significant than them or compete with them. But it wasn't possible until I really changed on both of those levels.
That's incredible. And I love Mind Valley, and there are some really great, and the big thing, great resources from them. But the big thing that you nailed is timing, right? That timing. And here you were at what you probably were considering one of the lowest places that you've been, and thinking, but you asked that question, I felt that you reached out, okay, there's got to be something else. And then the universe responded by that advertisement.
Exactly right.
And, everything happens. So I love that, it's easy to get stuck and stay stuck. But when you're willing and ready to receive and to be open, the magic does happen.
You're exactly right.
It's absolutely incredible. So on that note, we're going to have a quick break. And when we return, we're going to hear more about Sabin's story. We'll be right back. You're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM. Welcome back to Find Your Sparkle with Jen, and welcome back, Sabin. Oh my golly, just before break, we were talking about your huge transition and your, some of your moments where you thought, holy smokes, what's next for me? And how can I change things? And some really cool things started happening for you, right? It's kind of like, I can't help but, I thought about this during the break. Having the last name Karma is like the best karma ever. I mean, you probably grew up hearing that, but I mean, like, seriously, that is like just beautiful energy right away. So small wonder that these things happen. So you were talking about how Mind Valley and, meeting Lori and coming into Inside Out really helped to jumpstart a big transformation for you. Which, let's talk a little bit about that. And then I want to talk a little bit more about your book. And we were talking about, your 4 S's to come out of suffering. So before we talk about that, just talk a little bit about, that impact of joining Inside Out and what that really meant for you.
Yeah, I'd love to. So what I say is, I could take 10 hours on it. It's so beyond words and beautiful, the quantum leaps I've been able to make in transformation. And everyone that's known me for months now sees it, but I like to give this small example to give people a glimpse. And this will really tie into my story because I struggled, past tense, with perfectionism my whole life. And what you really get that's so special at Inside Out Institute is the conscious coaching and the subconscious healing. So I'll give a quick example. My coach, she wanted me to do a Facebook Live. I had never done one, not because I can't speak in front of a camera, but because it's throwing myself into imperfection with no script, not knowing what to say. And that used to be really difficult for me. So on the conscious side, and live in front of people. And on the conscious side, she came on with me for my first live, was holding my hand during the whole thing, metaphorically, of course, and guiding me through it. So I started to get better, dealing with, becoming more authentic and letting go of my perfectionism on the conscious side. The next week, my energy, healing practitioner was able to give me an energy clearing session around the emotional trauma and the ages and the emotions that were causing my subconscious to always tell me I need to be perfect. And
Right.
once I combined those two, a Facebook Live that I was shaking for that first one, I can do 5 a week, no problem. And that was in 2 weeks. So that's what I mean by when you combine both of them, quantum leaps in transformation. You're going to go places
Yes.
beyond what you can even imagine. And that's been my whole process at Inside Out Institute. And it hasn't stopped. And it's been 5 months. And I see it going for, the rest of my life, ideally. So it's just, that's the example I like to give to really condense it. But it really is beyond words at the end of the day.
One of the things that I love, and I know as a coach and other coaches out there will agree, is that you are teachable, because you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to make a difference. So to see you absorb and listen and be teachable, coachable, and actually doing this stuff is tremendous in of itself, because
Thank
even
you.
though people want to, they don't. But again, now we know, that part, that emotional baggage part and trapped emotions and all those things that are inside that we're unaware of, typically that's usually the culprit. So
Yeah.
knowing and having that opportunity to combine them. I mean, I've seen you since you first joined, and it's incredible to see how much you've flourished and grown. It truly is. It warms my heart. It's
Thank you.
amazing. So let's move into talking about, your book and how is that? I mean, because some people are, holy cow, you're 23, Sabin, right? But you have lived a lot for a 23-year-old. And, just give us some examples of how you decided that you're ready to do this book, and some of the great information that you're going to share.
Definitely, definitely. So this has been, a question on my heart for a couple years now. And it's what ultimately makes a difference between suffering that destroys and suffering that transforms. Now, it's very
Mm,
personal to me in my life because I've come out of suffering a transformed person, but it's also very dear to me because of my mom, who, was my best friend. And she had a really, really hard childhood. Her dad was murdered in her own house when she was 7 years old. I'm not
oh
kidding.
boy.
Horrible,
Whoa.
horrible. Her
Whoa.
mom, I know. Her mom was a drug addict her whole life. So she was basically had to take care of her sisters from 5, 7 years old on. And, she had 3 other sisters. And she, out of that suffering, went on to become the most beautiful heart of gold kind of mom that raised 5 beautiful, amazing boys who are going to have such an incredible impact on this world. While simultaneously in that same environment, 2 of her sisters ended up just like, their mom in jail on drugs. And I'm just like, what can I do so people can understand what makes this difference? So
Wow.
I want my book to serve as a handbook and a guide. You're in the deepest, darkest time of your life, and I want to help guide you out, because there's certain things that I found that you can do that will highly increase your chances of coming out of that. Because again, my mom or me with COVID, or my fraternity that I got dropped from, the 2 of them, I come out of it with deep gratitude, looking back saying, wow, that happened for a reason. And that was
Hmm.
meant to happen. But not
Yes.
everybody, that doesn't happen for everybody. My hope is that my book will close that gap, and that can happen for everybody, so they can look on their past with deep and immense gratitude because it made them the person they needed to be.
Oh my golly, I love that. And it certainly is going to have a huge impact. And I want to do whatever I can to help you reach 1 billion people. So let's talk
Thank
about
you.
those 4 S's of coming out of suffering.
Yeah, so this was something I came up with, the other week. I love getting downloads and or ideas, I like to call them, from meditation, and I really like to make it simple for people. So when you're suffering, if you want to come out of suffering, transformed, I say there's 4 S's, and the first one is solitude and silence. There's so many external things that are falling apart around us when we're suffering. And the last thing you want to do is be in all that external mess and then be suffering on the inside, because again, we got to work at the root, and the suffering's all internal. Even if the external stimulates the internal, which is often why we blame the external, we need to go to the root. The suffering's happening, it's disturbance inside of us. And the way we can start to do that is to isolate ourselves from the external distractions. So go to a park, go meditate. I was suffering 2-3 weeks ago. I had a predicament and I meditated for 6 hours a day, went to the park for 2 hours a day. And the very next thing I do is, after I get some of that peace, is I seek, new perspectives and new knowledge. And I want to give your audience 3 incredible questions that Jay Shetty gave me, and they're absolutely incredible. Anytime you're suffering, and you can journal about these, but I also would recommend letting those answers come to you in time. So the first one is, what is this situation trying to gift me? Or what good is here that I presently cannot see? The second one is, how can I never forget that gift? Because oftentimes that gift's going to be an internal quality that you can carry with you forever. And the third is, how can I give that gift to others? Because I really believe, and I just thought of this now, a 5th S, that ultimately the best way to come out of suffering is to share your story. Once you've come out of it, you really haven't. And the best quote I heard from a great friend of mine at Mind Valley is, we're not living our awakening if we're not sharing it. So when you come out of that suffering, be prepared to go back into that valley, not to relive your past, but to review it so you can inspire others and guide them out of the same valley that you were in. So that's thank you. So that's so it's silence, seek, and then I say surrender. And in that case, let go of the attachment. And oftentimes we suffer because we're resisting something that we don't want to happen, or we're clinging to something that we do want to happen. If you can let go of that attachment, come to peace with any outcome that's going to happen, and you can still be at peace within. Anything can happen externally, but I'm at peace within. You'll come back. And I always say, then oftentimes everything sorts itself out. But the final S I like to add is, you got to start at the root again. How do we do that? Subconscious first, inside out. We don't just go take conscious action. We got to work on the mental, emotional, and spiritual planes, which I really think are the 3 tenets of subconscious transformation. And I've done this many times. And that's how I come out of suffering every time, with transformation.
Good. I love that. Those are extremely concrete steps. So just one more time for our audience, just to give them, and with your 5th one added in there too. I think that's a great one.
So it's silent. So it's silent, solitude or silence, seek, surrender, subconscious, share. Those are my 5.
Beautiful. So when do you think that your book is going to come out?
Great question. So I'm currently in the writing process. And what's beautiful about Inside Out Institute is we have a book coach and an in-house publishing company. So in a few months' time, I'm gonna put the money down to do that and work with Lauren Eckhart. And I've already spoken to her, and it's incredible. So my plan is to have the book come out towards the end of 2021. That is the goal. And what's great is, because I'm going to enter my senior year of college next year, I have a thesis which I'm writing on this exact topic. I'm like, why don't I just write my book this year, because it's needed, especially with COVID times, and then turn that book, use an excerpt of that for my thesis. So that's the plan.
Perfect. Oh, I love that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, why reinvent the wheel? You're doing all the work now, so you might as well take advantage of it. So in the time that we have left, I want you to just give us a brief outlook of what your goal is to reach those 1 billion people, how you want to impact them.
Yeah. So again, I am 23, so I still have a lot to figure out and learn, despite how much I've already learned. Of course you do. And you're teachable and coachable. Thank you. But my plan is, a couple ways that I have so far. I plan to be a global transformational speaker. Now, I differentiate that from a motivational or inspirational speaker, because I don't want to simply inspire or simply motivate, although those are great. I want to take people to their lowest points and guide them out of the darkness through my words. I want to heal people through my words. So that's one way. I like to call myself an authenticity coach, because I'm obsessed with taking people deeper inside of themselves than they've ever gone. So they can really find that part of themselves at the soul level that actually makes them unique, because that was my biggest flaw. I was looking in the external world for my uniqueness. My uniqueness was inside of me the whole time. What I discovered is, I'm unique because I'm a unique expression of the universe or God or source, but I can only uncover that if I go inside of myself, not if I'm looking out here. So my authenticity coaching is, to uncover that part of you, because when you radiate that out to the world, now you're a magnet for true unconditional loving relationships. They find you and you find yourself loved for who you truly are, which is what everybody is after. It's why I was on the ice 8 hours a day. That's all I wanted. It's why I was trying to date a bunch of girls. That's all I wanted. I was just doing it the wrong way. So I really want to shift people's mindset, starting with self-awareness, transforming them from the inside out, if you will. That's why I was so drawn to it. And so they can be a magnet for what they truly want in life and not go after it in the wrong ways, because so many people do. And so, and then I plan on being, having multiple best-selling books. So sorry, that just went out for a second. I plan on having multiple best-selling books. I plan on doing podcast interviews, which I've already done a couple of them, traveling the world, speaking, preaching, coaching, and just mentoring. And the last thing I'll say is my brand name is King Karma. And I actually found out, a month ago that Sabin means, Karma is an interesting last name, but Sabin means king of the world. And for me, I'm all about mastering your inner kingdom, not the external kingdom that everybody thinks. But if I can have people come to me who think the solutions in the external kingdom, in the external world, and I can show them the real paths within, if I can touch people like that, I will have done my job. And my goal is not to have them dependent upon me, but to radiate that out themselves and pay it forward, so we can have a ripple effect of change in the world where we lose judgment, comparison, unworthiness, and we're filled, with unconditional love and compassion for ourselves, each other, and our creator.
And the world will be a much better place. That's for sure. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here, Sabin. I'm so excited that we get to spend this time together. And we're going to have another little side bonus segment that's coming up on my podcast. But for now, remember to go out and do something that makes you sparkle today. And every day you're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM. And we'll see you next time, friends. Bye for now.
Oh, great. Instead of doing like 45 minutes, go,
Yeah. I love these bonus segments. So welcome back, everyone. Here's our bonus with Sabin. I was just mentioning how I absolutely I love Sabin's energy. I love his outlook. I love his transformation that I've personally got to see over the last, I think, almost 6 months now. And it actually is incredible. And you were talking before we left Find Your Sparkle with Jen, the radio show, about King Karma, and that being your new kind of branding. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Sabin?
Yeah. So, everything for me is so intentional, and crafted so intentionally. And so when I found out that my name Sabin means king of the world, it was really, King Karma for me, and Karma is my last name, but the king part for me is I really think about who do I want to attract and what kind of pain do they have. And, it's funny, we were mentioning in one of the breaks, silent suffering. A lot of the people that I'm attracting to my brand and to my coaching is because are people that are silently suffering. People think they have it on the outside, they have it all put together, they seem to have the glamorous life, but they're suffering on the inside because the gap between who you present yourself to the world and who you actually are is suffering. And that's so deep to my heart because I suffered for that for so many years. And so my goal is to, King Karma has a good glamorous outlook, on the surface, but it's so much deeper than that because I want people to come in, not deceive them, but almost with that, oh, wow, this person has a lot figured out and I would love to learn from them, but I want to take them on a journey, shifting their perspective from outside to inside. And I love to do that through first self-awareness. I really believe because self-awareness leads to the choice to change, and the change happens internally. So self-awareness for me is showing somebody that the problem they think is external is actually inside of them. Now that they know that, how do they transform from the inside and radiate that out? Well, we have to start on the energetic, spiritual, soul level, then work on the emotional level, and then the mental level. And I really believe if you tackle it from there, then you follow that with conscious action after that, because you have to take action. I want to take people in that order. Everybody's ignoring the subconscious and the spiritual level, and everybody's just doing the conscious action. And so I want to cultivate that self-awareness so people know that they need to go within, and then I would love to be their guide to take them in. And that's kind of what my brand is all about at King Karma.
That's awesome. It's very similar story to how Find Your Sparkle came to be born too, because that was kind of
Yeah.
my thing is like, you know what, you lose yourself sometimes. You forget, you don't know who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I don't know what I like to do anymore. I don't know what makes me happy. What makes me happy? And oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what's wrong with me? I have all this stuff. I have all of this outside things, but I'm still not feeling. So for me, that was, Find Your Sparkle was all about filling that gap inside and finding that authentic. And it is a journey and you have to be open for
Yes.
it. And there are ways to, cut the learning curve and to be able to get in quicker. Can you you talked a little bit earlier about when you had the emotion code and the body code and you were doing the subconscious work and the difference it made. I think the example you talked about was in 2 weeks, you had gone from, you know, being fearful of Facebook lives and
Yeah.
doing them all the time and it being, okay. And that was coming from a perfectionist. So can you
Yeah.
talk about that for me? And you know what, Sabin, you've mentioned this before. I mean, it's so good that you have this information now because this is, for me, I've always been involved and loved energy work, but it, the emotion code for me has taken it to a whole different level.
Yes.
So, and the body code. So it just was just incredible and makes a huge difference. So just share a little bit about your
Of,
story about that.
of course. And so for me, what I love, even about, the Inside Out Institute and the combination of coaching and healing, I love it, love it, love it. And I love the coaching that I got. It was so great. However, I've always been an action taker. I've always been one of the hardest workers I've known, a lot like Todd Cahill. And the conscious side wasn't what I needed as much. So I was always taking conscious action in hockey, but I never reached a level of success I wanted to. I was constantly rejected from teams. I was never fulfilled even when I got to a high level. And my parents would always say, well, it's probably your mindset. And I was like, that doesn't even matter. So for the longest time, I did not believe it mattered. So I would get to this point, even after hockey, where I felt like I had this deep fire and calling inside of me, but I couldn't bring it out. I couldn't bring it out to the world. There was something, I had so much potential and something was holding back that potential from being actualized. The emotion and body code is what I realized. It was the emotional baggage, it was the past, it was the fear, it was the rejection, the constant rejection, the not getting approval. That stuff getting released, I realized my most authentic self is already inside of me. That fire is already there. What I had to do is not try and bring that fire out, but release the things that were preventing that fire from shining. And the emotion
Mhm.
code and body code for anybody who feels like they have potential, but it's not being actualized. I'm telling you, you have emotional baggage that's holding you back. You need to seriously have an open mind and jump into energy healing and emotion body code work, because I can't even describe the way I feel on the inside and the confidence I have in touching a billion lives. It's just a matter of time. I already know it's happening. I wish
Yes.
you could have spoken to me 6 months ago. There's not a chance I would have been thinking like this and knowing like this. But it's because of the subconscious work that was so much more, even more essential for me than even the coaching was the healing. It's so neat, and I get healing every week still, and it's so incredible.
It does make a difference. I mean, I do it for myself a lot. And if some of our colleagues and family members in IOI, it's a very supportive thing. And I notice for myself, if I get slack and don't do it for a little while, I can feel a difference in just my energy. So it's, those times where, you really need it, that you might be in a rush, you may be bogged down with everything and you're finding any kind of a reason or any kind of excuse to avoid it. That's the time that you really need to
You're
take a
exactly
half an
right.
hour and make it happen. Um, oh shoot, I just lost it. I had a great question for you and now it's gone out of my head. Darn it all. Well, at least this part is the uncut part.
Yeah,
So was there
it
was there
happens.
anything was there anything that jumped out to you that you wanted to share that you didn't get a chance to share yet, Sabin?
Hmm. Not particularly. I just wanted, for anyone who's still, watching this, I would love for, you can follow me on Instagram. Just want to let you know, Sabin Karma. I'm really making videos every day on exactly what I've been speaking about. The day one, I call it Mindful Mondays, and that's cultivating self-awareness this week. And I do a new topic every week. So this week was relationships. So again, showing you that the problem you think is outside about a relationship is inside of you. And then tackling the 3 tenets of subconscious transformation. I call it, I do therapy Tuesdays, which is the emotional side. Wake Up Wednesdays, the spiritual side, Thoughtful Thursdays, the mental side, and then I do Fearless Fridays, and that's my video today, where now I give the action step on the conscious side. But I just want, I don't think what I'm doing is original, but it's like people know about the subconscious and in the conscious, people are learning, but I want to take people in the direction. That's the thing. I want them to flip their mindset about what it means to solve a problem they think they're having, from the outside to the inside. And this is the way I've learned how to do it. And that's what I do
Oh,
on my Instagram.
I think it's a very creative approach, and I'm sure it's garnering lots of followers for you too. And the more that you're doing it, and people will learn to, oh, wonder what Sabin's advice is going to be today, or what's his, little video going to be today. So I think that's really exciting. But for me, it really has been. I mean, and there is no doubt, like it's already out there. Like, you are totally going to reach that 1 billion people out there. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
Why not? That's the whole thing. Why not you?
Exactly.
It makes perfect sense to me. The final question I have for you, and then I'll let you go because I know that you have a busy day ahead, is what makes you sparkle?
What makes me sparkle? So the first thing that came to my mind when you asked that is people. For the longest time, I had so many insecurities and I was masking my own sparkle, if you will. But as I've cleared that, especially through the emotion and body code, which I'm so forever thankful for, I think my friend Farah at Inside Out put it best when I was at the Inside Out Mastermind in Chicago. She said, Sabin, when I look into your eyes, I see one thing, and I see compassion. So I think what makes me sparkle is that, I may have an exterior that may have certain people judge me a certain way. I've been called a frat star in certain ways because of the way I look. But when you really get to know me, the soul, windows are the eyes are the windows of the soul. If you really get to know me behind that, I'm just full of compassion and unconditional love and authenticity. And I think that's what really makes me sparkle. That's what makes me alive, when I get to experience that myself and share that with other people.
Awesome. That was very well said. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, my friend, for spending this time with me. It has been an absolute blast. And, it really has been great getting to know you even more. So thank you for being here. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you grow. It's awesome. So thanks, Sabin.
Thank you so much. This was nothing short of phenomenal. I really enjoyed it.
Perfect. Well, we will be definitely talking to you soon. See you later. And remember, go and do something that makes you sparkle today and every day.
Yes.
Bye for now, friends.
Bye-bye.